Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Untitled Reviews. This being a show where I talk about dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the series premiere of Beef. Great series premiere. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So I think it's such an interesting, because even from the first episode, it feels like this in itself is kind of an examination of the human condition. Obviously, we're going to extreme lengths, but there's still some realness into like the absurdity of it, because it's a part of the human condition of like, hey, you could pop off on the wrong person because you have no idea what this person might be going through, or you yourself might be having a bad day, and it's just that thing of you never know what the other person is going through. That's always something you have to keep in mind. I mean, that's kind of a hard way to walk through life, like constantly on eggshell, like, oh, I better be on my best behavior because I don't want to piss off the wrong person and end up getting killed or stalked and chased down to the point someone takes a massive piss all over my bathroom after they pretended to be try to got into my house for different reasons, so obviously it's a very extreme example of it, but it's still the thing of you do just never know what someone else is going through. And I thought that was interesting because we first got introduced to Danny. Obviously, Danny's got a lot of underlying issues that obviously, like, we didn't know initially what he's going through. Obviously, throughout the episode, we got to see not only him, but also Amy and what they're going through. And I thought that sequence was so interesting. First and foremost, when he was returning stuff in the beginning, I was like, there's something odd about it, but I just can't place my finger on it. Now we finally have context for it, like later in the episode. I'm like, so that's what that was about. I had a weird inkling. I don't know if I immediately went to that, but I'm like, it seemed like there was something off there. So, but Danny was kind of having an off day. He bumped into someone who was also having an off day, but I thought we would have gotten like Amy's perspective. Like, eventually, like, when the sequence ended and we saw that it was Amy behind the driver's seat, I thought we would have gotten the flip perspective of seeing her moments building up to that. But I guess it's kind of not as important because it's like, I mean, I think it's also just because for the sake of the scene of like, right, Danny doesn't know who the person is in the car. And so it's almost supposed to be like, we don't either until we find out it is Amy. And now we're seeing her side of things and understand. I think maybe that's just the interesting perspective of it too. We have Danny's from before and after the event. We only have Amy's after, and she's telling us about her before. So maybe I think that's such an interesting thing to just think about. Like, the fact is we never really got Amy's build up to it. To be fair, it's not like at least like we got some with Danny of like him getting irritated with the person at the return section because he's like making an announcement on the intercom like, yeah, make sure when you come here to return something you have your receipt ready. And Danny's just like, what, you trying to put me on blast, trying to shame me? Because there's other people behind the line be like, all right, come on, so he ended up having to keep the stuff he was trying to return. But either way, Amy was dealing with all this stuff at work because she's in a process of trying to sell her business and make bank off of it because like a larger company or whatever is trying to buy it. So then she has the whole situation at home. You can tell things are kind of complicated with her husband because she wants to vent, she wants to be angry, but her husband's all about like, hey, take a deep breath. We might need to go back to these gratitude journals, breathe in, focus on the positive. It's like, no, I'm angry. I should be allowed to feel my anger. With jumping ahead a little bit, I guess we kind of have the context on why George is like that. I mean, because maybe just naturally he's a very even-keeled person. Maybe it's kind of like an artist thing because his dad was also an artist. Then later on we find out about the gun situation that he changed the locks on Amy on the safe. And Amy's like, why'd you do that? He's like, you know why I did that, like why I didn't give you the combination. And we see later on, she's like rubbing the gun against herself. She loves the clicking of it. Homie, I wasn't expecting her to like put it between. I was like, yo, why she's super into that is like, is she kind of a big gun person or something? Or that has she always enjoyed it and maybe that just never sat well with George? Or like, we don't have the full context of what that is. Like, maybe like because of her anger issues, it's like resting we need, or maybe it's just because I was about to say, if it was just putting it away because of your daughter, then she should know Amy should know the combination too. But the fact is George feels the need to not tell her. There's definitely more to that. But the fact is, like I said, I can only assume at this point in time it's because her husband knows her anger issues. But it's like, right, I'm not allowed to be angry. I have to just kind of take a step back. I have to breathe and, focus on the positive. She has to deal with that stressful situation at work. The fact of the matter is, her mother-in-law is very judgmental of like, oh, we need to like get my granddaughter like actually from being taught by an actual art teacher. But for Amy, it's like, no, it helps with her anxiety. Let's not put too much pressure on her. She's no longer picking her skin. So it's like, yeah, this has been a positive. I don't want this thing that is helping her to be associated with something stressful. And because, I mean, I think it's also that thing of, you know, obviously it's kind of like a stereotype, but also that cultural thing of the pressure, you know, put on an Asian child by an Asian family, like what that means. And it's like, right, something you love could easily be pushed into something where it's like, no, you need to kind of make this your thing, especially considering like, right, her dad is an artist. Her dad's dad was an artist, a pretty famous one at that. So it's kind of like the artist is the artistic side of things is in your blood. So rather than you just like, we need to kind of like, progress that side of things. Like it can't just be fun and games and can't just be a hobby that helps you with anxiety. It's like, no. We need to get you ready at a young age so that you can excel as you get older, you know? So, but Amy kind of doesn't want that for her child. But, you know, once again, and she also has to deal with her mother-in-law griping about, oh, like you need to get the place remodeled. It's just like judgment. It's just, I mean, I don't think that's even just like an Asian thing. I think that's just like that thing in particular is just kind of like, right. You know, people tend to hate their in-laws. So I think that's just kind of applicable across any ethnicity or culture. It's just kind of like, oh, I hate my in-laws who think they know better than me. Especially because in George's case, you know, and I think this might lean into because obviously, like any culture can lean into the whole aspect of you're supposed to respect your elders, but obviously in the Asian culture, it's even more so like so like George siding with his mom and rather kind of standing up and kind of like giving pushback. He kind of like sides with her, which I'm sure rubs Amy the wrong way. So there's all that. Her company or whatever store is getting bought up by Jordan's company, played by Maria Bello. But obviously I didn't even talk about the fact is it's like, oh yeah, like going into this, no one's like, oh, it's Steven Yeun and Ali Wong. That's awesome. But either way, I love her being like, oh yeah, like, just don't screw this up. Cause she's like, we both know I could easily go to China and steal your idea for so much less. And she's like, yeah, let's keep those jobs in America, right? And she's like, yeah, exactly. And it's just like, Amy has to put up this facade. Once again, for her, it's like, I'm tired of just having, and this is, I'll go ahead and like shift it over to Danny's side of things, but she's just tired of having to be pleasant and having to smile, and so is he. That's the sad thing. If it wasn't for the road rage situation, there could have been a friendship formed from this because they both are kind of going through the same thing. They're both dealing with family things. His family's kind of struggling. They ended up losing their motel, like I think it was like a hotel that they were running or whatever. They lost it because Danny and Paul's cousin ended up running a scam. Apparently it was like a baby formula scam, and he was like, yeah, who knew that you could counterfeit baby formula, which hasn't, I think that's also based on a real life thing, isn't it, where that ended up kind of, I don't know, I might be conflating that with just other baby formula issues, the shortage that had happened in the past. But I was like, counterfeit baby formula did come up during that situation, didn't it? Or am I construing real life with a TV show I watched? I don't know. Either way. But yeah, their family kind of lost their business because of that. And the fact is they're kind of struggling with money. He's struggling with money. His brother's in the crypto game. And he's like, yo, I don't like that. Like, the fact of the matter is that money you have, you could use it to pay rent. But his brother rather play video games. It's like, leave me alone. Everyone in my family's a loser but me. Paul does seem like he has success, but I could also see where Danny was coming from. Of like, it's like the stock market thing where it's like, it's exactly like the stock market situation. It's just like, there's too much gambling in it and for you to have so much money staked into it for it to all fall apart, which we do see later on. There's a massive drop from the, like, because Danny was happy at first when he got the password and he saw like, oh, things are good. Oh, wow, things are great. And then he checks later and it's like, things are bad. Things are on the decline. So he's got the family situation he's stressing about. Said cousin who got in trouble, played by David Choi, ended up out of jail. They're sitting down, and he's like, "Oh, is there something I can help with?" And Danny's like, "Yeah, could you get the money?" He's like, "Jesus, bro, what do you say? Like, can I get my pussy lubed up first before you start asking for something?" Because it's like Danny wasn't gonna say anything, but you kept looking at him like, "Right, let me know whatever issue you're dealing with." And the moment he asked for money, it's like, "Oh my god, dude." Because it's also like a situation of like, right, it's kind of your fault. Things kind of played out the way they were, but Danny's not trying to blame you, so it's a lot. That conversation, there is like a little said, but there's so much added context of just not stuff, so much not being said in that conversation. So I was like, fine, I'll give you the 20 grand. I'm like, where are you getting that 20 grand from? Shouldn't that be a little suspicious? Whatever the case may be, Danny's doing everything he can to grind it out. He does some contract work, does a doorbell for this dude, and the husband and wife don't realize Danny can hear them when there's like, because the wife is like, "Hey, aren't you going to fire the guy?" He's like, "Yeah, he's coming by tomorrow to do the trees." It's like, no, he's so annoying. It's like, yeah, he is. It's like, that sucks. Danny came back to do the trees with his homies. It might not even be his homies. Those might just be people who like he hired to be like, "Yo, I need your help doing this." And nearly almost dies falling out the tree. Once again, I do love the juxtaposition. Maybe not even juxtaposition, but parallel between both of their reactions when they both hear the horn going off. They both turn around because like he sees the vehicle and he's not sure if it's like the one he had an incident with, and she heard a horn and that just made her think back to when she turned around and didn't see anything, but they were both kind of a little antsy. Just like that experience was still inside of them. Like it never quite quelled, especially when you have all this other life stuff like stacked on top of it, making it so much worse, you know? Maybe if it wasn't for all the other life stuff, maybe this could have all been prevented. But if it's all been prevented, you don't have a sword. You need everything to get escalated more and more. And I'm sure that as the series goes on, it's going to escalate more and more and more, considering all that. I mean, especially where you see where Danny was. Danny was at the end of his rope. Like, who knows? I mean, he's tried to return stuff multiple times. So I think he's attempted to, unalive himself multiple times, and he got tired. It was that thing of like, yeah, like I'm so frustrated with life, like my brother's treating me like I'm a loser, like even though I'm doing all I can to help with the family, I'm getting blamed, like, I'm trying to help out the family, my mom's telling me, hey, don't worry about us too much, and my dad's like, oh, the land you're trying to buy is there, sure, I'll believe it when I see it. Your brother's treating you like a loser, like, oh, I've got everything figured out. That whole crypto stuff isn't fully working out on that front. He has the audacity to order an Uber just so he doesn't have to drive for you because he considers you that much of a loser, especially after you got fired from the job of trying to cut down the trees. I mean, they already went to fire already, so it wasn't like, oh my God, you missed out on opportunities. Like, no, you already knew what time it was beforehand. It just builds and builds. Also, I didn't talk about it. Amy did look into like the post about the her and Danny's like road rage situation. Luckily, the person who's like guarding specifically Danny went through, turns out they couldn't get any license plates, nor could they see Danny or Amy's face. So she's kind of glad, but there was almost a part of her that's kind of excited about it. So I don't know if there's some like angry rush that she gets where she gets excited about it. Once again, maybe that has to do with like the whole touching herself with the gun and just feeling the click against her vagina. Like, I don't, why did I say that weird? I said vagina, but it sounded like Virginia. I said it weird. Anyway, so I have no idea, what Amy's saying is. Once again, it's just the first episode, but the confrontation at the end, I really love. I kind of got that spoiled for me already, but still I enjoyed it. Just like, once again, because the build up made it even better, because I wasn't expecting them to actually click. Like when Amy was kind of going off on everything in life, you're like, oh, Danny could definitely like understand and like he can sympathize and empathize. But then it's like the moment he found out who she was, of like, because she's kind of his reason to keep. I mean, he'd already kind of decided like, oh man, I'm not going to do it. And then it's just like, right, I need to focus on something else. So all my anger I've got towards myself that's building up inside that I've got at everyone else, but I can't really lash out. It's just all bottling up inside me. I need to lash out on the person who's kind of ruined my day. I need kind of some extra payback. So paid nearly $80 to get access to finding out whose vehicle it was, tracked her down, made an excuse to get inside of her house, went into her bathroom and literally pissed everywhere. And I love that when he's making a run from Amy, because Amy sees the puddle of piss out front of the door. She's like, what's that about? Looked in, he had pissed everywhere. Like, I wonder, was that your initial intention? Was your plan always to piss in there? Or did, like, because how do you have that much urine buildup? Like, that's why I'm like, did you go there with the sole intention of like, oh, I plan on not pissing so that I can have enough urine stored up in my bladder? Or just, are you just like, it's easy for you to turn the faucet on and never turn it off? Either way, Amy chasing after him. I do love the parallels of like, he had gotten her license plate, said it multiple times to remember. Now she's doing the same thing. But then there's this look in her eye, like she's almost like, oh, you want to do this? Bet, I got you. Like I said, like it seems like Amy kind of enjoys like the angry, like, because I think because she has George always trying to make her not live in her anger, she doesn't get to live in it. She has to like bottle it up and just kind of like, once again, put on a fake smile and choke it down, which I think Danny does the same thing too, but it feels like she has to kind of like swallow that anger even more than he does. But we'll ultimately have to wait to see where all this ends up taking us going forward into the next episode. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.